At this point, several studies have shown that farmers practicing non-pesticide management and decreasing reliance on artificial techniques have boasted of higher profits and less expensive. Apart from this, practicing sustainable techniques has led to increasing our resilience to global climate change and protecting our biodiversity and natural resources. They are therefore essential to ensure that our global economy and environment will remain protected not only for this generation but for several generations to come.
Agriculture has been the bedrock of every successful civilization, and it is imperative for each civilization to have a cohesive agricultural structure for economic and social growth.
As a public health researcher, I'm cognizant of the fact that our overconsumptive trajectory with nature has yielded in very severely unsustainable food systems. And I think moving forward, it's imperative for agriculture not only to have an influence on SDG 3, which is health and well-being, but also the broader context of climate change and planetary health.
Agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to climate change, and climate change is one of the biggest threats to agriculture. And the only way to truly escape this vicious cycle is through sustainable farming. First off, though biotechnology has to be one of the main routes that we use, we cannot depend on the scientific community alone to get us through this crisis. GMOs, for example, were an incredible breakthrough in technology, but remain to date one of the most controversial practices in scientific history.
Agriculture is one of the most ancient and central practices of humankind overall since ancient times. But we don't know what it's going to look like in the future. The way our cities are moving towards today, the future our cities are moving towards, is one that's very murky and could go in any direction.
We've been practicing urban agriculture for about 5 years now, and it's been a great journey. We follow a system where we grow our produce indoors on vertical systems with soil base. We hardly use any water because of the controlled environment and temperature. Carbon footprint is a huge saving for the environment, and our consumers get the produce the fastest and the freshest. Urban agriculture really is the future.
In which extreme poverty is eliminated and in which every rural family lives in dignity. This vision can only be achieved if agriculture, the mainstay of rural families, is sustainable. And to be sustainable, agriculture must meet the needs of present and future generations. This means ensuring that agricultural practices are not just environmentally healthy and ecologically sound, but also profitable, commercially competitive, and socially equitable. In India, IFAD and its partners support farmers to grow crops that are nutritious and accessible for everyone, and where natural resources are managed in a way that maintains ecosystem functions to support current as well as future human needs.
Agriculture is a sector in which the possibilities are boundless. While the SDGs indicate sustainable agriculture with zero hunger as the 2030 agenda, some innovations are already propagating food growing independence through advanced automation, heralding the hydroponics revolution, and Cropdata in order to help India's farmers and find a digital solution to a long-standing problem. Let's look at the goals more closely with those who are at the heart of these innovations. Be inspired. Sustainable farming. Changing agriculture one milestone at a time. Akhila Vijayraghavan and Dr. Murtaza Hasan in conversation with Sanket Upadhyay. Akhila Vijayraghavan is a molecular biology graduate from the University of Glasgow. She has worked in environmental consultancy for over a decade and is now an urban hydroponic farmer. Dr. Murtaza Hasan is presently working as a principal scientist at Center for Protected Cultivation Technology, Ministry of Agriculture. His research areas are protected cultivation technology, water resource management, vertical and smart farming, and pressurized drip fertigation. Sanket Upadhyay is an executive editor of the NDTV Group. He appears on both English and Hindi channels NDTV 24/7 and NDTV India respectively. He currently hosts a daily primetime show at 9:30 p.m. on NDTV 24/7 and a debate on NDTV India, apart from several daily bulletins.
Hello and welcome. You're watching this special discussion on Be Inspired, where we are crystal gazing into the future as to what are the limitless possibilities as far as the agricultural sector is concerned. For instance, can you and I, sitting in a city, be associated with farming? Can we do that? Well, guess what? It's already happened. Dr. Hasan, a quick question to you first. Can we have a situation where everyone in this country can be a farmer?
Yes, it is. And the background research we have been doing in the form of soilless, hydroponics, and aeroponics, which is a further part. And all these things are broadly categorized as protected cultivation, you can say. And then nowadays, the very popular word is vertical farming. That how in Delhi state, where the people have some space on their balcony, on their rooftop, everyone can be a grower and grow something healthy in their own house. And even inside your drawing room also.
That's true. Akhila, just coming back to you, and when you crystal gaze, when you think of the possibilities, it is only human to also think of the concerns of how this may not happen, or what are the challenges that one may face. As a recent convert to these new forms of farming, I want to ask you, what were those concerns in your mind, and what are the challenges you're facing right now?
So hydroponics is, of course, very well suited to an urban form of agriculture because it shortens the supply chain of food. It makes sure that the food that you procure is grown close to you, and it has a lot of other sustainability benefits as well. However, the biggest barrier to entry for small farmers like myself is the capex. Unfortunately, it's not recognized as a form of agriculture under Indian tax law. And this is something that I'm hoping will change, because it will encourage hydroponic farms on pretty much every rooftop, which is, I think, something that we need in order to push towards food security and food equity.
Dr. Hasan, this point that Ms. Akhila is making is very important. And as a hydroponics enthusiast myself, and I want to join Akhila in this activity, this is exactly my concern. I'm sure there is some infrastructure which needs to be put in place for any form of agriculture apart from the traditional form which is happening right now in this country. Do you think that it becomes incumbent on a government or the establishment to promote this extensively? For instance, in this country, there has been a huge solar push. Now, you may argue whether the solar technology has been readily accepted or not, but you see that sustained push from the government. Do you think that this is the right time for a sustained campaign by the government to, number one, recognize different forms of agriculture, and number two, subsidize or make it easy for everyone to take it up?
Yes, there are two things. First, for the common grower, like a common citizen, it does not need any support. For a common citizen, as I told you, that especially in the peri-urban areas, if anyone wants to have these small models, whether for a hydroponic, for soilless grow bag, or aeroponics, 50 plants model, 100 plants model that you can grow even in your balcony, even in your drawing room also, it does not require much money. Very small power requirement is there, but yes, for a sustained farming basis, it requires a great push and a lot of efforts and support from the government. Now, let me tell you what is the situation. Broadly, commercially, when we go for such type of cultivation, it is known as protected cultivation. Now, protected cultivation in terms of greenhouse, net house, shade nets, huge subsidy-led initiatives have been going on in our country. It is already going on. This initiative so far under National Horticulture Mission, it supports only the infrastructure cost of the farmers. That the subsidy is quite good. 50% subsidies from central government and 25 to 40% subsidies from the state governments. So coupled to this, the subsidy is very good. But till now, the subsidy is only for a certain kind of structures. That structure is only above 1,000 square meter to 4,000 square meter. And that too, this structure supports only the normal soil cultivation inside protected structure. So of course, when we want to grow the commercially hydroponics or aeroponics, that has to be done in the protected structure. So the cost of protected structures, all the infrastructures required for hydroponics and all these things, so far it is not covered. We have been doing it very rigorously. I hope that in coming days, it will come.
Yes, Akhila, I think I heard you right when you said that hydroponics is not covered in the Indian tax law structure. That essentially means that whatever are the tax laws or tax rebates or no tax for farmers in the form of traditional farming is not a facility extended to hydroponic farming. Do you think that this could be a key area of change? And the early the government recognizes, the better.
Definitely, because I think pretty much every city these days has at least one hydroponic farm. And from a grower's perspective, from a farmer's perspective, I think it makes sense if we are able to get some sort of a tax break, because like Dr. Hasan rightfully said, the infrastructure cost alone is pretty high when it comes to setting up a farm. On top of that, we have operational costs. And if your greenhouse is temperature controlled, operational costs are quite expensive. So when it comes to even small things like electricity subsidies or even other infrastructural subsidies, it would be a great break for us, because it means that we can expand the area under cultivation. We can expand the amount that we are able to grow, which automatically means that we can give the produce to our customers at a much lower price.
I think you're talking about subsidization. The point that Mr. Murtaza also referred to. I'm talking about the rules that apply as far as taxing the produce is concerned. Now, obviously, we know in traditional forms of agriculture, there is a set pattern. This is not something which has been extended to these newer forms. My point is that if there is no parity, why would a farmer, like you can definitely practice hydroponics in the comfort of your home in the urban areas. But what if a traditional farmer were to adopt this at a large scale in his farm? Does he have that incentive to do it apart from subsidy?
The simple answer would be no, because I think it would be a lot of hoops to jump through, for example, for the average traditional farmer, which is why, unfortunately, it is become a business rather than a farming model. And my hope is that in the future, it will actually become a farming model as well. And for that to happen, there does need to be some sort of policy shift.
Would you like to make certain suggestions? What policy shift would you want?
Well, I think on the first off, for the average farmer to become a hydroponic farmer, there needs to be a lot of educational support. There needs to be a lot of financial support as well. So these two things are very, very important to make this form of agriculture mainstream. It's not impossible. It just means that there needs to be some concerted effort.
Dr. Murtaza, let me come back to you. When you often hear this, and this is a story of every household, that the veggies that you're buying from the market, the food that you're buying, it's all full of chemicals and pesticides and God knows what you're eating. And here you have this amazing new technology where you can grow your own food in the comfort of your own home, and it is going to be largely organic or completely organic. Now, if this could be scaled up, this is a vision that only governments can have. that they can scale this up to a point where this then becomes the norm, that all the vegetables available in the market or food grains available will be organic and people can contribute to this food. Do you think that this sort of vision already exists in the government or needs to exist?
No, this has to be done. Akhila is right that so far it's a normal business model. It has to be the actual farming model in the country. This is the one thing. The other thing is that, in this type of cultivation, we grow what? We grow high value horticulture produce. Mostly high value vegetables, tomato, capsicum, cucumber, all greens you can take, microgreens, herbs. No, these are healthy foods, especially in the post-corona period. Everyone wants to have these sort of things in their home. That is the major advantage. Let me tell you, there are many startups now coming up. And what these smart startups they are doing, and then some are of course in technical collaboration with us. They have the complete package that they will give you the infrastructure support, they will give you the agronomic support, and then now they are going one step further, that they are selling their own produce in the name of salad bar or something. Very smart packet is there, and then people and normal citizens, they are taking these things in very high price because they know that just in the name of brand name, hydroponically produced veg, aeroponically produced produce. Just the catchy name is such, and still it is catching very good price. The good thing is that it does not require almost any, you can say it is free of insecticide and pesticide. When you grow, it's a totally controlled condition. And so it's a very healthy food overall. That's the major thing. The other thing is that when we want to do this type of thing commercially, as I have told you, then a lot of support, a lot of initiative. The first thing is that the farmer should have exposure visit to some demonstration, trainings, HRD, and then technology is already there. See, there is no problem in the technology. Technology is already there. The only thing is that it has to become into the actual farming model in our country.
No, Dr. Murtaza, that's exactly my point. Now, this hydroponics how old is this form of farming? When did we come to know about it?
It's actually, if I may, sir, it's actually pretty old technique. The gardens of Babylon are supposed to be hydroponics, and NASA has been working on this technology for the past 70 years to grow vegetables in space. Commercially, for the past 20 or 30 years in the West, it has been a very viable form of agriculture. In India, I would say the past 5 to 7 years.
Okay, past 5 to 7 years. Now, Dr. Murtaza, in terms of policy now, do you think 5 to 7 years of seeing an experiment going on in this country where, as you said, that there are certain startups, and I know of a few myself, if you go on Amazon, you will see that they're trying to sell their products also, that buy a 4 sapling hydroponics kit or a 40 sapling kit, right? And they will give you the whole infrastructure. They even run a call center, which is fantastic. But the point is, this is a personal enterprise, a business enterprise. While that happens, I want to ask you, should there not be a situation where there should be a government level enterprise? And why do you think that we are 7 years too late?
No, of course, Akhila is right that 7 years precisely, you can say 7 to 10 years, this hydroponics forms. Otherwise, it's primitive form, that is the protected cultivation overall. It's going on for almost last 20 years. Okay. Now, see what is the latest development in terms of R&D and all these things. Now you can see that all the state agriculture universities, all the Ministry of Agriculture led Indian Council of Agriculture, there are about 100 research institutes. Now, in almost all IITs, IIMs, and all the engineering colleges also, because this technology is very technology-led agriculture. And the beauty is that why it is sustaining is that it is very water and energy efficient. Let me tell you one example. Take the example of, we have done the detailed experiment, lettuce crop. We have found that in terms of when we grow the lettuce in the normal open field, and when you grow the crop in the aeroponics, there is about 70 to 90% water saving. So net requirement is only 10%. So you can see that in the coming days, when the two things are going to be very important. And from my point of view, these things are very much important for sustainability. That is the theme of this today's program. These technologies are very water and energy efficient. And that's why we call, you can say now, the catchy word like smart agriculture, precision agriculture, and all these things. So now in all these, whatever the institutes I have told you, in all these institutes, basic research, or you can say even in the course curriculum, these things are going on. Farmers are also started doing it also. But yes, in terms of, as I told you very clearly, that commercially we do not have now detailed policy on this. So commercially, that the basic model of minimum 1,000 square meter greenhouse, 1 acre greenhouse, and then inside those greenhouses, that plus when there will be infrastructure for hydroponics and aeroponics, then all the irrigation, fertigation setup infrastructure. So these all requires, from the farmer's point of view, mind setup, then of course training, demonstration, and then of course also that you are very right in the ultimately that the produce that would be that the farmers will produce from this technology, how they are going to be marketed, where there will be some incentives because these are very healthy produce. So these things are still lacking. I think efforts are going on, and I hope in the coming days it will come very soon.
Okay, and as is the focus of this discussion, Akhila, let's do some crystal gazing. If as far as agricultural reforms are concerned, we know that everybody wants reforms. The government has run into rough weather with the farmers on the issues of agricultural reforms. But don't you think this would have been a great point of agricultural reform, where there would have been a law, a process, a system set up to promote these new forms of agriculture, that the government says, look, we're very serious. Do you think that these new forms of agriculture have the potential in them to create another green revolution in India, a healthy green revolution?
I think definitely yes, because India is poised at being, one of the most populous. I mean, we already are one of the most populous countries in the world. I think that pressure is definitely going to be increasing, especially in urban areas. Like I mentioned before, hydroponics is an ideal form of cultivation for urban centers. So leaving out the rural farming model aside, I'd like to bring the focus a little bit more to urban farming model, where I think would be the biggest push as far as government support is concerned, to bring the food closer to where the population is most concentrated. Our transportation systems, it affects the way that we use water, it affects the way that we use electricity, it affects pretty much everything. It has a knock-on effect on everything. And it also has a knock-on effect on food accessibility, which means malnourishment, which means health. And as Dr. Hasan rightly pointed out, post-pandemic, these are the concerns that most people in urban areas have. So definitely, I do think that, there has to be a remodeling of what agriculture means in the coming days.
Dr. Murtaza, I don't know whether you would want to comment on this or not, but let me ask. Imagining a situation where every household in this country, every urban household start to produce, their own vegetables, they have their own farms. Could this, in a way, affect the rural agricultural economy in some way? I mean, if we reach in a situation where urban centers become, they're able to sustain themselves, then what happens to rural agriculture?
No, let us not mix these two things. See, now, this technology is for what? As I told you that this technology has also limitations also. Limitations is that in this technology, we mostly used to grow healthy green vegetables. Flowers, herbs you can also grow, there is no problem. So these things are in a small model in your household. You can grow it only for your own family, that for limited things. In this particular technology, we do not grow the normal grain crops that we eat. So this technology is very much, you can say, that gives you
Limiting.
additional healthy benefits to your diets that is required nowadays. That is missing, in fact, you can see in our diets. See now, the grain crops, rice, wheat, other pulses and all these things,
that you
they are
can't do
typically
here.
grown. Yeah. See now, what we are doing now, that we have adopted around more than 100 villages in and around Delhi, our institute, Indian Agriculture Research Institutes. And the 5 villages of Rohtak, they are under my guidance. So what we do, there are typical rice-belt villages. We do not say you start growing rice, wheat and other things. Let you grow all these things. The beauty of this technology is that it requires very little space. So we used to convince the farmer that, okay, in a very limited space, you grow these things, healthy vegetables, and they are very much convinced that it's for your family. You start with your family and then you can go for sale. So we are not, through this technology, the normal grain crops, that is you can say the core food for our life, it is not affected. It will go on. We train the farmers like this, that you continue to grow your whatever the grain crops you are doing. In a small patch of your land, of your house, you can adopt this technology and grow the healthy foods for your family, first of all, and with very little efforts. So this is the background of things. So these two things are totally different.
Sure.
Akhila is that it is very sustainable model, especially for peri-urban areas. You can see in big cities.
So Akhila, how can individuals like yourself and many others who are taking up these new forms of agriculture inspire others? I mean, is it already a community? Are you in touch with others who are doing this? What inspires? How do you inspire one another? How many friends have you made who do hydroponics?
Well, the hydroponic community is still very small, and I think it's safe to say that if we don't know each other personally, we might have at least heard of one another. And I'm very new to the space, so I'm still learning. I'm still meeting people, and I think the way that we inspire each other is to learn from what one another is doing. Because I think some farms are much further ahead, and some farms are doing innovative things when it comes to actually different types of growing. Like on my farm, the big focus is edible flowers. I don't know too many people who are focusing on hydroponically grown edible flowers. So I think there's a lot of learning opportunities, and there definitely needs to be some sort of knowledge sharing between all of us. And I think that's slowly happening. But more than ourselves getting inspired, I think it's a great opportunity to inspire other people around you to think about the way you eat, to think about where your food comes from, to think about the health impacts of your food, and to also inspire the next generation of agriculturists to think about what agriculture, or rather the potential of agriculture for the future.
I want to know from you this important aspect on technology, as Dr. Murtaza was saying. It is technology driven. Now, the thing with technology, Akhila, is that it changes and changes rapidly. So suppose if I have made or a person has made about 10 lakh rupees of investment, and then that technology becomes obsolete. How do you update that technology? Is it easy?
Well, as far as farms and smart farms are concerned, the big technological advancement would be the use of IoT, the use of AI, the use of even robotics in many advanced farms, and drones as well. So the sensors technology is pretty basic in the sense that it sends out the readings of the water, of the temperature, the ambience temperature,
pH level.
Yeah, exactly. pH levels and so on. So I think that is pretty standard. The only other advancement that would happen or likely to happen in the future is all the bells and whistles stuff. Which, it really depends on whether there's a market for it, whether there's a use for it, whether there is, a capacity to actually improve the functioning of the farm. I mentioned drones and robotics. A lot of farms in the West use robotics to ensure that it is completely labor-free. and completely, not handled by human hands to reduce the risk of contamination. Drones are used to study whether the plants are ready to harvest, to see if there are any diseases, and to study nutritional deficiencies and so on and so forth. So, so when it comes to those things like robotics and drones, those are the bells and whistles stuff. The basic stuff when it comes to technology is things like sensors, things like IoT. And I think those things are what, the first step when it comes to technological advancement. So I think it really depends on, to answer your question, I don't really think that there is going to be that much of an upgradation on the top end versus the bottom end.
Leaving this program with hope, let me start one by one. Akhila, with you first. Can we do it?
Definitely. I think my personal vision or dream for the future when it comes to agriculture in India is to have more urban farms, because that is the only way to ensure food security for a population of people living in cities. It also ensures food equity. But when I talk about urban farms, we also have to address the affordability and accessibility of food. And of the farm itself. So it would be a great dream to have, a hydroponic farm or any sort of farm on every rooftop in India. It is something that I envision. I hope that it will happen. But the ground reality is that there's a lot more support and a lot more policy support that's needed, and a lot more push from not just the government, but also the private sector.
Dr. Murtaza, the same question to you as we leave. Can we do it?
Yes, we will sure. Because the situation is such that in the coming days, we will have very less water, and then we want the technology which should be energy efficient. So, and everyone wants to have some healthy food in their house. So I am sure that in coming days, there will be some very popular, you can say, hydroponic farms, or you can say aeroponic farm that is missing in our country. In the West and in many other countries, there are some very popular aeroponics and hydroponic based big farms are there. That is not there in our country so far. The patchy work, small in area 1,000 square meter, 100 square meter, efforts have been going on in many places, many growers in private sector and government sector also. But yes, in coming days, I would imagine that to have some sort of very popular, or you can say very standard hydroponic, aeroponic based farms in our country, that would be a good model for normal citizens and normal farmers to go and see, and then that will push this technology.
All right. Dr. Murtaza Hasan as well as Akhila Vijayraghavan, thank you very much for inspiring. Let's just hope that there is someone young out there, and you've caught them young, and they've been inspired by this new form of agriculture, new form of farming. The only thing that one wants to say towards the end of this presentation is that if you actually want to undertake this experiment, purely as an experiment, trust me, just go on Amazon or Flipkart or any one of these websites. You've got hydroponic experiment tools available for as little as 1,200 rupees. You can be a farmer for just 1,200 rupees. At least make a beginning, and then the world is your oyster.
An innovation can change the world. All we need is passion, focus, and a desire to help. If you have an innovation that spans new thoughts on economics and beyond, please send it to us at whatever stage it is in. Our panel of experts will assess it and help propel it towards reality. The sky is your limit. Don't wait. Mail us your idea or innovative thought at beinspired@teamworkarts.com.